Real Estate Pro Talk with your host, Greg Ernie, connecting people, community and property.
Well, hello, Greg Ernie here, and welcome to another episode of Real Estate Pro Talk. Today, we have ventured into Camberwell to meet probably one of the busiest females in real estate, and I'm honoured that she's given up her time to share her thoughts on the real estate market. I've got a few questions that we're going to ask her today. Leah Calnan, President of the REIV, welcome and thank you for your time.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So, Leah, this goes out to our local residents around our 4 offices, and probably, first of all, a lot of them may not know what the REIV is. Could you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, perfect. So the REIV is the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. We're a membership organisation and we support members through advocacy, training, development. We're continually looking at CPD, with a lot of work with government, so solely for the members. We don't provide any services to the public, which sometimes causes some challenges.
It's an interesting though, a lot of the public sort of see the REIV as the point of call though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Rather than Consumer Affairs, which is who they need to go to, we are solely for our members.
For members,
Yep.
Okay. So I've got a couple of questions. The last couple of weeks have been, or probably all of this year has been, or even last year, have been extremely busy. But can I ask, there's been some serious changes or a fair new additions come in, 130 laws come in for the Residential Tenancies Act. Does the REIV get consulted with some of those changes before they come in, or what was the process around that?
Yeah, so as the REIV continues to work with government, and we work with government on all areas of legislation, from residential tenancy to owners corporation to Sale and Land Act, everything.
Yep.
So it is a stakeholder engagement process. A lot of the times the communication will be a collective forum where you have all the stakeholders come together, and that's what we did. It's nearly 3 years ago now with Tenants Union and Rooming House and Parks and Caravans and lots of other government departments and REIV.
Yep.
And you work through the different sectors and the different processes and legislation proposals.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we're the one body for the supply side. There's of the 20 in the room, there's usually 1 or 2 supply, and the others are for the consumer.
Right.
So it is a challenge.
So when you say the supply side,
housing,
as far as, and probably it was actually a question I was going to ask. There's been a lot of concern, particularly from landlords, with the changes.
Yeah.
So I take by when you say the supply side, who's been representing the landlord's perspective with some of those changes?
Yeah, so that's us.
Right.
And that's the really challenging part, and is often misunderstood because, whilst we're a membership organisation, we're here to assist our sales agents, property managers, owner corporation managers, etc.
Yes.
But we actually, in our negotiation, we're always looking at it from a landlord's point of view as well, trying to protect their interests.
Yeah.
So we're the body for the landlords, but we actually don't get any credit for that.
It's an interesting one because I know, speaking to many landlords there, some of the changes that are coming in to the new Residential Tenancies Act, they're going to increase the costs of having an investment property, and many landlords have said that it seems that there's probably a bit more leeway for the tenant, and that's not to say anything bad about the tenant, but that's the concern of the landlord. So,
Absolutely.
is there any advice you can give to landlords that are perhaps concerned about the change? You mentioned that obviously it's just the REIV. Is there anywhere where they can voice any of their concerns?
No, unfortunately not. It's legislation that's been passed through Parliament.
Yep.
So the reality is, if you wanted a change in outcome, you'd have to change the government.
Sure.
To be as frank as you can be.
Yes.
But it's really important to make sure that those owners are starting to have really good conversations with their property managers. Never in my 25 years in this space has the need for a property manager been more important than it is now.
Absolutely. And have you noticed, or has the REIV noticed, perhaps a lot more landlords now thinking, you know what, I'm actually not feeling comfortable with this, we might sell our investment property? Has there been an increase in discussions around that?
Yeah, there's definitely been an increase, and we preempted it would be that we would see challenges in that space. And it's interesting because from the tenants' union point of view, and often from government's point of view, their answer is, oh, that's okay because they'll be sold to first home buyers.
Yep.
And that might be a short-term solution, and it might be okay for the next couple of months. But ultimately, in the environment that we're in today, the borders will reopen, international students will come back, migration will return.
Yep.
And as a result of that, you're going to have this shortage of rental supply, and then in return it pushes the rents up, which is the complete opposite of what the government ultimately wants.
But,
so there's very often it's quite short-sighted.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? So the changes have come in to protect the tenant. I think some of the changes that have come in, and I know it's implied some costs to owners, but there's the making sure they're up to the right condition and standard, and and a lot of things are probably common sense. When I go through the Act and I look and I break it down, I think, well, we're doing a lot of those things.
That's exactly right.
Anyway,
yeah, we have been for many years. It's now just a higher level of compliance and responsibility.
Yeah, and our estimates for landlords is probably roughly per year to keep the property up to the standard now with the checks that's required. It's somewhere probably going to be $400 to $500 per year to get that. So that's considerable cost. So at minimum, you're at least looking a landlord just to cover that cost has probably got to put the rent up at least $10 per week if they can. Not to mention the shortage as well, isn't it? So,
and ultimately and this is what investors aren't wanting to hear, but not only are they going to incur that cost, they are going to have an cost in the property management services, like it or not.
Yes, yeah.
There has to be, because these new roles and responsibilities that are now being implemented are beyond the normal scope of a property manager. So there has to be that consideration from the investor's perspective as well.
Correct, and that's pretty much my next question. How are the agents feeling about it? Because I know how my rental team is feeling about it. What's coming from the industry as a whole?
Yeah, look, it's certainly been challenging. We've all scrambled, and I think it's clunky. I've described it numerous times. It's clunky at the moment because we had 63 days to understand 100, not just the 130 legislation changes, but the regulations about compliance, minimum standards, disclosure. All these new areas which are brand new for the property management space. So not only did you have to understand, you needed to implement, design, and prepare for and train your staff. And the state and the landlords.
Yeah, and do your normal work that's coming in anyway. That's
and deal
right.
with omnibus legislation and non-eviction moratoriums and all these sort of things. So the property management space is absolutely, they are the heroes in
absolutely. And I know we've said to our team, and we're just talking off camera, guys, it'll be okay. Just it will work through it. We know the changes are massive. We'll get through it, just take it each day at a time, and I think that's all that you can do.
Exactly
I am aware of some property managers or that have exited. They're just like, you know what, it's too much. The pressure is immense, and I know that's one thing we're very conscious of for our business, and in fact we've even put extra staff on to cover that increase in work, because it's there's a lot, as you say, you've got to bring in new systems, procedures, and you still got to do your normal work as well.
Yeah, that's right. And we've seen that it's about 1 in 3 property managers have left the industry.
That's massive.
It is enormous.
Yeah.
So you've got this loss of expertise and talent.
Yep.
And, we often hear the complaint from investors, why is there a turnover in my property manager? Well, this is the reality of what's happened.
Yes.
And it's going to continue. So it's really important that sometimes investors realise that it's a really challenging job, and it has been, taken to a whole nother level in the last 12 months. So they have to understand that, things are going to look different in this space moving forward.
Absolutely. And assistance that the REIV is providing, training, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've done lots of training, from being in Camberwell to, I ultimately go to Mildura in a coming weeks. We've been to Mornington and Bendigo and Geelong. We've done lots of Zoom meetings. We're running some Q&As every Thursday lunchtime. Again, just as a bit of now that the changes are in, we're going to have all these practical questions, and we're hearing them now. When I issue a notice, what supporting documents do I need? How do I manage the rent increase notice? What's that going to look like? we know sales campaigns. So there's so many things.
Yep.
And I suppose it's a little bit different for the REIV having a property manager as a president, because my head is practical.
And it's probably, are you the first property manager
I am,
president?
yes.
So it's probably
Maybe
good
the
well, but it's probably at least you understand that space,
Yeah.
because let's be candid, there's a lot of real estate principals out there that have never done property management
Yeah.
and don't really understand it. So you well and truly,
Yeah.
as
Makes
I
it easier.
say to my team, if you want to understand communication skills, become a property manager. You'll well and truly you'll learn all aspects. That's for sure. Moving along, obviously with COVID, the state government brought in the rental moratorium, which prevented that. There was a couple of things, but the main things were that we weren't able to evict tenants, and also that it suspended rental increases. That finished as of yesterday.
Yep.
Have you seen have you seen a surge in applications for evictions or increase of rent? What's been the feeling around that?
Yeah, it's something that we're monitoring, and I have put a call out to the industry to keep me updated, because I'm
did
sure
see that.
Yeah, there were
Yes.
property managers at 9:01 that went go.
Yes.
Rent increases or notice to vacate. And
Yep.
if we think about regional Victoria, they will be powering through rent increases, absolutely. Notice to vacates, we are monitoring,
Yep.
but there seems to have been a reasonable amount,
Yes.
and we'll get some feedback through VCAT,
Yep.
and hopefully they'll share their data of what happened yesterday.
Yep.
Because it is really important for them to see perspective.
Yes.
And it's going to be represented through those.
And perspective too, that when I say evicting tenants, that doesn't mean that we want to do that, but the perspective
Yep.
is that if there's a landlord that's carrying the mortgage and the tenant hasn't been paying the rent, and
Yep.
I know you'll probably know a lot more stories than what I
Yeah.
would, but I'm certainly aware of the hardship there that, and the poor landlord hasn't been able to
That's right.
to deal with that.
Yep, and couldn't sell the property or couldn't move into the
Correct.
property. So there's those variables. Yeah, so it is. People assume evicting means they've done the wrong thing, and that's not always the case.
No, that's right. And as you say, even from just the selling perspective,
Yep.
I know that's something we've had to balance, because if you sell it and a buyer wants to move into the property, well, how does that all work?
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting time. The sales market.
Yes, well,
It's,
could I have any more moving factors happening as president?
Unbelievable. And I've been in real estate 23 years. My father, Jeff, he's
Yep.
been in real estate 49, and he said to our sales team the other day, the last probably 6 or so weeks would be as big a boom and as most active market as he's ever experienced.
Yep.
Obviously, we're in the outer east, but is that generally is that the feeling across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything probably except the inner city apartment market.
Yep.
They are struggling, and they will probably continue to struggle for a little while, even more so if they have cladding issues. But the market is just moving so
Yep.
quickly, and you and I were just talking before that when you actually think about a campaign, an agent and a vendor decide to put the property on the market, the paperwork is signed, price is discussed then.
Yep.
2 weeks really to prepare, marketing, description, photography, and then you run a 4 to 6 week auction campaign. In this market where it's moving so quickly, you're actually 7 weeks out.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
all of a sudden, I'm sure the words of underquoting has come about.
Yep.
And it will continue to raise its head.
And that was one of my questions. Have you had has there been any questions on that? I know me meeting buyers at opens, and you can start to pick up there's a bit of frustration. It was interesting, I was talking to a buyer the other day, and she said she came through a property that we had on, it was around the 900. And she said, Greg, I'm looking at this property. It was on the market with another agent. It was sort of 750 to 8. And she showed me the photo. She said, well, is that going to be selling at 750 to 8, do you think? Or is that 750 by 8 going to be 900? You could see the confusion.
Yeah.
Has the REIV, have you started to see a bit coming in from the consumer around that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing more questions around it, because it's very easy to assume it's underquoting, but it's actually not. Just we've never seen this market move, or the property market move as quickly as it is at the moment. And ultimately, if the vendor doesn't want to take any offers, which is probably in their best interest at the moment, then there's no requirements in order to make any changes to the sale range. And we're seeing properties go well above what the expectation was. And you've also got a shortage of volume of stock. versus a huge number of prospective buyers. So if you add those...
It's a double whammy, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yep.
So, and when people are missing out continually, they get frustrated and will make the assumption that it's underquoting.
Yeah, well, normally, to give you an idea, normally we have around 300 inspections a week. For March, one week we did 756
Wow.
buyer inspections
Yeah,
in a week.
there you
So,
go.
and that's with low stock levels as well.
Yep.
So if you look at it and go, "Poor, like that's more like that's a company record for us."
Yeah.
So it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, and I think on that we've talked about the metro medium house price creeping towards that $1 million mark. You know, we're sitting at 956
Yep.
for the December quarter. The March quarter figures come out middle April. We are trending very much towards that $1 million.
And very quickly
Yeah.
as well. And I even know in our outer suburbs, you know, I
Yeah.
would say prices have jumped anywhere from 50 to 80,000 probably in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's unheard of. So just stepping away from the market, as the industry changes, I'm now seeing a lot more buyer advocates, vendor advocates starting to come into the market. Can they be members of the REIV, or how does that work?
Yeah, they can be members. So
Yep.
we made some changes to our constitution a little while ago, a different membership category. So you can be from an owner's corporation to a buyer's agent to a vendor advocacy. There are
Good.
different layers. So, because, you know, real estate's so different now than it was,
Correct.
you know, when we started.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so previously you were a salesperson and you're a property manager, and then, you know, auctioneering became more of a talent, and then we've added a whole nother scope of areas, industry specialists. So,
Yes.
yeah, happy to incorporate them all.
Good, and I think
Yeah.
that's good. And I know, you know, where we are, probably I think more you call it your inner city, you know, deals more with the buyer advocates at the auctions and all of that. We haven't seen too much out there, but I have noticed the last couple of months a real increase
Yeah.
in buyer advocates helping people looking to purchase. So it's
Yeah.
so no, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And education standards for the REIV. What professional development points, CPD points? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I knew you were going to ask me what that number was, and I do not know off the top of my head, but I think you have to have 12
12?
to 15.
I think it's 12. It's
Okay,
12, I
great.
think.
12 per year.
Yep.
And that can come through, you know, whether it be, you know, attending a conference or we're doing a Zoom, even reading certain books,
Yep.
you can actually get points. So it's really important to make sure, you know, people's or the members' CPD is still maintained. I would love for it to be a compulsory aspect
Yes.
of our industry, because
Yep.
it would set us to another level.
Yep.
Maybe it won't be in my time as president, but, you know, future presidents and management will need to ultimately look at that and continue to discuss with
Yeah.
government.
And I think that's the thing from the consumer's perspective. At the end of the day, you know, you want standards to be the same, agents to be trained,
Yeah.
and all of that. So
Exactly.
you know, it's vitally important. And there's a big change coming in, obviously, about what the requirements are just to become an agent's representative. So that'll have some big changes for business and property management
Yeah.
and sales. Can you just summarise the change in that?
Yeah, so it's been something that, as an industry, not just REIV, but members have wanted a higher level of education. You know, when you think about it, to complete 3 modules over 5 days and to be effectively able to go and sell or manage $1 million properties, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But you know, when we think about COVID and omnibus and, you know, all these 130 changes, now they've added this whole another layer in September. Just means that we go from having a 3-module qualification to I think it's an 18 module
Yep.
for the minimum, and then you can take it to another level and specialise in property management, auctioneering, you know, the different areas of specialties, and that takes, I think, up to a 24, like into a diploma.
Yes.
So
Yep.
really it's focusing on people coming into the industry as a career. So, like, again, when we think about when we started,
Yep.
I don't know, when I started in property management, people would say, oh, when are you moving into sales, Leah?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing sales ever. Sold 2 properties in my life.
Yeah.
So now you want property management to be a career. You want
Yes.
sales to be a career.
Yep.
And so that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's just the timing's really average.
Yep.
And we will see probably more a churn in our industry of people coming out.
Yep.
But I think for the better in the long term, it will be better for consumers, clients,
Yep.
and us as an industry.
Yes, yeah. The biggest challenge probably will be, and I know we'll talk about it, is attracting new people. And
Yeah.
I think probably, and we're saying to people at the moment, if you've had any thoughts, even some of our admin team that haven't got their agent's
Yeah.
representative, we're encouraging them to go and
Yeah.
get it, because it will be a lot more onerous and
Yeah,
a lot
that's
harder to
right.
get.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting that space going forward.
Yeah. And there does seem to be those that perhaps have been on reception for a couple of years and love reception, and all of a sudden think, oh, well, I actually, if I want to change my mind or do something else in the coming years in this space, I need to do my 3 modules now.
Correct.
Yep.
Even I've got my wife doing her agent's rep,
Oh,
and she's got no plans at all. But I said, I think you should get it just in case.
It's
so
funny you say that, because I was talking to the twins,
Yeah.
and I said, they're 16 this year. I'm like, look, if you want to, get into real estate, could Saturday work
Yeah.
before sport?
Yeah.
You could get into your agent's rep now.
That's right. Well, my wife's done all of the modules. I think she's got 2 to do where she's got to record herself doing some sort of presentation. And anyway, she's like, I don't know why you've got me doing this, but but anyway. Last year was an incredible year.
Yeah.
And I say incredible, but it was a tough year, challenging year. It threw everything at us, both real estate and just in life in general.
Yeah.
You guys were amazing. Can you just share a little bit of the communication that you did? Because I don't want to use that word pivoted, but I think that how you changed and what you did to keep all of us agents and agencies in the loop was remarkable. Just talk to us a bit on that.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like such a long time ago.
Like a blur, isn't it?
Oh, it does feel like a blur. Yeah, look, I think for a long time, the REIV was a body. It was never seen as people.
Yep.
And it's been managed by people for a very, very long time, like 82 years.
Yep.
So, I think, and again, it's probably my PM background and my PM headspace. I created, in some ways with Gil, the CEO, life to it.
Yep.
And by adding life, Gil would get legislation from government. He would tell me what it all means, and then I would say, okay, we need to put this into practical terms so that our industry, whether you're a member or not,
Yep.
for the best ability for everyone to understand moving forward. So we did it through videos. I get so many comments of the amount of videos I've done, from my children walking in the background to animals popping in, and I think I just created an ability for people to connect.
But I think, and I think if I can say the rawness of that.
Yeah.
But
Some of them weren't.
No, but there were some occasions when we were going into lockdown, or can we do inspections?
Yeah.
We're not allowed, and obviously you started up a managing COVID REIV page, which we would be tuning in a lot, just to see what's happening, and you'd hear Daniel Andrews would make an announcement, and we'd be like, well, we'll just wait for the REIV and then a couple of hours later, through would come your advice.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff was invaluable.
Yeah.
For me running the business, but for all of our team and a lot of livelihoods at stake.
Yeah, that's right. And
yeah.
I think we just wanted to make sure everyone knew we had their back. Things were really challenging, and I know nobody wanted to not do inspections, and nobody didn't want to go to their office.
Yep.
But we just wanted to try and hold everyone's hand as much as we possibly could.
Yep.
And
And keep everyone's emotions in check and all of that, isn't it? So,
yeah, it was. So
yeah.
making sure that we're all supporting each other, and
Yep.
I think it's changed our industry.
Yeah, I agree.
For the better.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Well,
Yeah.
Leah, that's the end of my questions.
Oh, my goodness. You said 5 minutes. We've been going like for 15. We just chat away.
We were.
Yeah.
But thank you for your
pleasure.
time. And I take my hat off to you. I know I've spoken to you before, but the effort that you put in last year, and the commitment to our industry and to your members, which is, people like me and all of our team, and remarkable. So honoured to have you on Real Estate Pro Talk, and we wish you well. And I think you were talking, your presidency ends in October.
Yes.
Yep.
Second term finishes then.
Well, well done. You should be. You'll walk away and head up high. You've done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Leah. Thank you.